Stardate 2024.11.10. Depending on who you ask, the most beloved literature and film of the decades past about the final frontier have had a grand debate. Is it opera? Is it fantasy? Is it horror? Or is it just too fucking weird to classify? Well, this debate will continue on This Week in Indies and our panel. Then, C.O. Cannon rescues us with indie books you might enjoy if you are a fan of Star Wars. Finally, we'll see who malfunctions when the panel gets 20 questions to guess who I am in this space. So set your curiosity to stun. Let's boldly go where no debate has gone before. Hopefully, the Force is with us always. On This Week in Indies with your host, Joe Compton. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are, however you got here. We really appreciate that you are here. Thank you so much for joining us on This Week in Indies. It's been a minute since I've hosted the show, so I'm happy to be here and happy to have the panel that I have and happy to talk about the subject matter we're going to talk about today. And looking, here they are, the beautiful people that we have. And Anita's here. So hello, Anita. How you doing? All right. So let's go around the room. Just tell us a little bit about yourselves and who you are and what you write, and then we'll get to talking about space. So Claudia, why don't you start us off, please?
Hi, I'm Claudia Blood. I write sci-fi and sci-fantasy mostly, and I guess that's my favorite series is partially set in space. So I'm super excited about this panel.
Nice, awesome. All right, Brad.
Hey, my name is Brad Anderson. I write science fiction novels and short stories. My short stories tend to be more fantastical. My novels tend to be more sci-fi. So I don't know, figure out what that says about my brain. And I have no strong opinions about sci-fi or fantasy. So I'll be I'll try to be the mediator in this grand debate.
Sounds good. All right, Angela.
Hi, my name is Angela Rico Smith. I publish Space and Time magazine, so we're all about this conversation. And I write science fiction and horror. I do tend to be on the horror side, but lately that seems very appropriate. So here we are.
Yeah. All right, and Stephanie.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Costigan. I'm an author and journalist, and I mainly focus on fantasy and also history. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, history will play a part in today's conversation, I have no doubt. Hello, Tiffany. How you doing? And fantasy obviously will as well. So, look, we can get into the fandoms aspect of this and the craziness of these rabid fans, because these fandoms are very rabid. They're very passionate and they're very excited about what they represent, right? We're talking about the Star Warses and the Star Treks and all of those out there. But there is a contingencies of very small microcosms of exploring the universes and the vastness in the final frontier that I think gets often overlooked in these conversations, because we all had a love for something that brought us to why we decided to explore these spaces, whether it be fantastical, whether it be historic, whether it be horrific, but I'm curious from your perspectives, what is it about space that intrigued you the most? And, before we get into the debate about where you stand and where you write in space, I'd love to know a little bit about why space is so intriguing to you and what makes it so appealing to you, why you write. Anybody can take it.
I guess for me, it's the infinite possibilities. Like it's the real world. It's so vast and unexplored, and it's so far away that it's almost like you've got your and just even like probability and statistics. Like there's got to be something out there. It's so big. It's so different. There's so much, and it could be anything. And so it's almost like real life fantasy. right? Like it could be like it really could be real, some of these things that you're talking about. So I think that's the appeal to it. It's not magic, it's math and probability, and so I think that's what appeals for me.
For me, it's it's the next frontier. It's the next horizon beyond which we don't know. We don't know what lies beyond it, right? It's the future. And so yeah, I know it's just I like science fiction because it gives us multiple ways of envisioning our future, the future, and we can kind of play with that. We can kind of play in that space and just see what are the ways that things could unfold and how would we react to that, and how it's all these little it's a sandbox for us to play with different futures, so we can kind of, when the future actually gets here, we can come to it with a little bit of forethought, maybe.
I think like any author, you'll find with authors that there's no like everything can be possible, like in our minds. Like, when people come and like say crazy conspiracy theories, we're like, what if? I don't know. That's the mind of an author. We can take anything and make it very real.
Yeah, that's super interesting because I kind of thought we would all say the same thing. But I think for me, it's very personal. I grew up at the time, nobody talked about neurodivergency. Like, what is that? We don't know. You're just the weird kid. So to me, when I saw space, when I first saw Star Wars, excuse my pronunciations, it was very much oh, that explains everything. I don't belong here. I'm actually from someplace else. And I've heard since that's really a common thing. When you don't fit in, you just kind of go, that's the explanation. That's the logic. I'm actually not from here, And so it became my safe place. Dune, including, it was Star Wars and Dune were two of my big ones. So I guess Dune was like the rebel teenage me, and Star Wars was more like the happy part. But it was very much like, that makes sense now. Obviously, I'm from outer space somehow, and my people are going to come take me back at some point because I don't like it here, But now I do realize, no, I am actually from here. Damn it.
How boring.
I know. God damn. It was Darth Vader. I'm so going to vote for him.
Is he on the ballot?
I wish. I so wish. That would have been great.
I was like you, Angela. Dune swept me away early on in my life, and then then I got into film and Star Wars, and I always wished I was one of the people getting on that ship at the end of Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I was always something like that. I was like, and the last Starfighter, I was like, I could be the last Starfighter. Yeah.
And it
Star
helped
Wars
that it
Dune.
was Sting, that I had a huge crush on Sting for the early, the old Dune.
Old Dune.
Yeah. Nice.
And those little pointy, little pointy bikini bottoms that he wore in the big.
Oh, I might need to watch it again. It's been a while. I forgot about that.
So I mean, okay. So as far as like genre goes, right? As far as writing goes, and things of this nature, and Angela, I'd love to have you start this conversation because you represent a magazine that covers all of science fiction in a lot of respects. As far as subgenres go and things like that, is there a debate? Do you feel like there is a debate about what type of subgenre it needs to be? When you're putting together a magazine, for example, are you classifying and lumping in subgenres together? Are you kind of trying to mix it? How has the approach been for those who do explore space? Do you feel like the subgenres are kind of getting muddied, or do you feel like they are setting boundaries for each idea?
I think it really depends a lot on the publication, or you as the writer as well, which way you're going to go. So for the magazine particularly, and also for the way that I tend to think of science fiction, I really do like to mix up all the genres. And we have a very strong, before lately, but especially now, we have always wanted the stories that will teach us another perspective. to make the world hopefully better, which sometimes can be showing the really negative thing to show why we don't want to go that, the cautionary tale. So that's kind of where we've always been. And that's what I like. I'm not saying that obviously you write story to entertain as well. But for us in the magazine, and for me in the magazine, because we do try to make it a team selection, like many people select, otherwise it will probably all be horror because it's me. So I do depend on my staff to also make those final decisions. We have a final readers group, and it's actually Gordon Linsner, the founder of the magazine, and Hildy Silverman, and then Ken, and like all of us try to go in there to decide on these stories. But that's one thing that we really all seem to agree on, is the stories have to be things that need to be said, either because they're difficult things to say, or that they can be a warning to people, or hope, as in don't fall for this, because we can stick together and we can survive this, whatever it is, whatever horror situation this is. I say horror for me, but also science fiction for everybody else.
By the way, y'all, if you don't know, and this is my first opportunity to say congratulations, by the way, to Miss Angela Eurico Smith. She is the president of the HWA, the Horror Writers Association. She was nominated and elected as the president. So we have a president we can be proud of here
thanks.
on our cast. So
thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it. So there's not a lot of competition in politics. So, I'm kind of like, I win. I'm like the one that everybody can stand right now compared to what's been going on this last week. But
I don't think they could have picked a better person, to be honest with you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Your representation of horror has been well documented, and I'm really happy for you. So congratulations.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. So of the aspects of setting genre for all of you who write in this space too, and Angela, you can chime in on this one as well. But I am curious: are you concerned about subgenre other than when you set it into Amazon, or do you feel like you can muddy the waters a little bit when it comes to science fiction and not have to, pick sides, so to speak?
I mean, it always felt like that decision was based on the story and what was going on in it and whether or not it made any sense. And so some stories were definitely sci-fi. There was absolutely no fantasy elements, and that's just the way the story wanted to be written. And then there's others that I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess there's some magic there. All right, well, I guess I'm writing science fantasy.
Nice. Yeah. How about you, Brad?
I had fun. It's when I first started writing, I'm like, I was sort of same idea. It's like I don't care. I'm just going to write the story that's in my head and let other people figure out what to call it. And it's so when I published You a Tarot, I had some success with it, and I was happy with that. And then you kind of like, I started to think, okay, maybe I need to write to the market. And I started to try to, that's where I suddenly started, okay, like what's, okay, you want to write to the market, what's hot right now, what's doing this, what's doing that. And I found it actually, it screwed up my writing for like 2 years. Like for 2 years, I couldn't finish anything. Finish anything because I wasn't writing. I was writing to the market. I wasn't writing for me. And then after like 2 years of banging my head, I'm like, maybe I can't do this. After 2 years, I just like smashed everything off my desk. And I'm just going to write what I want to write again and not care about that. And maybe it'll just sit in my desk drawer and collect dust, or maybe it won't. But so yeah, I found that dynamic kind of took over for a little while and wrecked me. And I kind of had to get back to that, like just screw it, I'm just going to write whatever and let other people figure out where to categorize it and if they like it or not, so
Yeah.
I mean, you don't necessarily dabble in space much, Stephanie, but I mean the fantasy aspect of it, crossing, I'm sure you crossed some planes and some ethereal, existences and things of that nature. So was that, were you thinking about how close to science fiction am I getting with this at all?
I wasn't. Again, I was more focused. I think I knew what direction it was going too, just because of the nature and the way the book played out. It was definitely more of a fantasy element. I mean, I guess actually, now that I think about it, I guess it could dabble, maybe play the line a little bit with a tiny bit of space. But I think it really, I just really went with my heart with this novel, and it's something I had been working on since I was 12 years old. So it just matured with me, and it has a very interesting mix. I think a lot of people, I guess, at first it was hard for people. They're like, this is very different than what I'm used to, right? And that's what I think I kind of like as an author, is I like to challenge the stories, because a lot of stories follow patterns, right? But I like to kind of make my own pattern per se, or like basically try to create a new story. And that's really hard because every story has been told that you could possibly think of. But yeah, it I think, just like what was said before, it really depends on the story.
I like what you said, Stephanie, about because I think this is true with all art, like music, stories, movie, like everything. Like if you sort of tell what's been told, then it's boring because it's been told 1,000 times before. If you go too weird, like too different, readers are like, this is weird.
What?
I can't get my head into it. Like you kind of have to hit that sweet spot where it's like,
Did you?
Balance. You need a balance.
yeah, right.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's awesome. I agree with you guys. Actually, when I started doing science fiction, it was because it was early in my career and I was trying to write horror because that's what I read a lot of. Like, what is horror? I'm going to copy these other people. I'm writing these things that I feel like I should be writing. And they were all right. And then it was actually Brian Theowara, a friend of mine. He was actually a mentor for me at the time and then became friends, said, why are you not writing your stories? Which I think comes into that authenticity of, yes, everything has been told, but it can't be told from our point of view because it's only ours. It's the one thing that we actually can own in this world. And Brian said, why are you not writing about the stuff that you actually like? You're writing these gothic stories about babysitters and ghosts and stuff. And yeah, I get that. I see that that's part of your experience, but you are a tech geek. If there's anything that is light, color changing or anything, you're there. I'll sit in front of color change forever and just stare at it because I don't know. I'm hypnotized. And you're super into like gadgets and science fiction and stuff, but I don't see any of that in your story. So I wrote my first story. It was like in an hour. It was my first professional sale, but I had a deadline and I couldn't really get to it. And I wanted to, so I spit this story out. It was Vanilla Rice, which is about a mother who, there's a lot of themes of like the wives that get bought, and things like that, because it's Asian. It's about my Asian heritage. And but anyways, it was just about like the mother's point of view of what is proper, what she wants for her daughter. And so she uses DNA to change it for her daughter. But did she really want that? Like, she's not giving her the chance to understand what she wants, and authenticity, and all these are the themes. But it was my first professional sale. It was really successful. And that's been reprinted like, I think 4 times now. And it's been in anthologies that have won prizes and stuff. So that was where I was kind of like, oh, snap. It really does pay to be yourself, instead of us trying to. So that's kind of where I got into it. It was just more like me not writing science fiction because I don't want to be one of those writers, So I'm trying to write this actual, true air quotes, horror kind of because this is what I think I should write. But what I should have written was exactly what I wanted to write. And so I bounce back and forth on that. Sometimes it is the story and what is the vehicle that needs to say the message that I'm trying to say. And it could be super science fiction and it could be more horror, but it just really depends. But a lot of times it has color change lights in it for some reason.
So
Fascinating.
I love that. For when you do release it, right? When you do just go with whatever creatively strikes you at the moment, and then you go back and you've written. So we've word saladed the whole thing. We've got our draft out. We're ready to go. We now know what it is, or what it could become, right? Are you then hampered by genre or subgenre in science fiction, or are you kind of still ignoring that, just focused on the story? And then, I mean, I think subgenre and genre are playing more into the marketing aspect than it is the writing aspect, right? So, but at some point when you're writing it, you have to think that, okay, I want people to read this, right? I want to have an audience. So is there a moment within your writing process that you're thinking about that, when you're thinking about, okay, maybe I can sell this to some Star Wars fans, or maybe I can sell this to some, Firefly fans, or to that effect. Is there moments when you're thinking about that, or are you still fully focused on the story until it gets into into the space, into the ether of Amazon, or your website, or to a publisher or something to that effect? I'm wondering when it becomes your thought process as to who's going to want to read this.
I'm with Brad though, that if I start introducing those things too soon in the process, it kills me. It kills my
Mhm.
writing. I wander away and do dishes or whatever other thing that I do. And so I really have to wait until it is done and feels really good and sent to an editor. And then I go, well, crap, what is this?
I think, like, yeah, just like she said, it's like really books are pieces of art.
Yeah.
And like it's really hard to create under pressure. You just throw out kind of yucky stuff under pressure. And it's something like that. I feel like that question is more of a marketing question.
Yeah.
Um, and really, I think when the artist first creates the art, they worry about the marketing after the creation's done, because
Yeah.
then you can kind of figure out what audience likes this kind of stuff, and you can do more research, and then you start to market it towards that audience. So I think the audience part, at least for me, comes in after the book has been completed and edited and
Oh,
purified.
all right.
I would
Let,
say.
let me let me let me reframe the question. Let me refine it for you all. Do you ever look at your stuff and go, "Holy crap, I'm gonna piss off a lot of Star Wars fans with this"? Is there a moment when you go, "You know what? Maybe I need to tailor back a little bit," or "You know what? I'm going right at him. I'm gonna go right for the jugular with this." Do you ever feel that buzz in terms of, maybe not in the writing process, but when you're ready to put it out in the world? We'll go with, it's all part of the marketing aspect, but I still think that's an important part of what we do. So I would love to hear if that's a thought process for you all. Do you feel like, okay, if I set this as space, if I'm going to say this is a space opera, I'm going to get half of the Star Wars fans who believe that that's a space opera, and half of them that believe it's a fantasy, half of them, because we're going to have that grand debate to the end of time. I mean, I'll contend to the state of Alien as a horror film and not a science fiction film, right? I mean, that's my personal belief, but and we can debate that as well. But I think if I was writing that, I would probably say I want to market it to science fiction folks, right? Because it's set in space, and I'm gonna mess up their brains a little bit and screw them up a little bit with how I'm going to scare the shit out of them, right? But is there thought processes like that? Do you guys go, ooh, yeah, I'm gonna mess some people up with this,
For
No,
me, I don't necessarily.
just
So
it's
it's not
just me,
necessarily like,
Brian. It's just me.
yeah, no, it's not like when I'm writing, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to screw off this fan base, or I'm going to piss off this fan base. But I
Well,
mean,
we
the
don't
art,
want to
like,
do that, right?
like screw those guys. No, it's
I'm going to make you hate science fiction people.
yeah, I'm done. Oh, there are times when I'm writing where I'm like, I can imagine that you know, this might ruffle some feathers, or sometimes I worry about that too. I don't know, it's not like this fan base, but I'm like, well, I can imagine some readers not liking what I'm doing with this.
Mhm.
Taking unexpected turns that are a little bold.
Yeah.
Or dark.
Sometimes, especially if you're telling a story, there's stories that are just like, okay, it's like pop sci-fi. This is just for entertainment. And you're like, okay, we're not going to ruffle any feathers. All the feathers will be ruffled for fun, right? But then there's other stories where you're like, I think this is a story that needs to be told. And there's some things I believe in, and I want that to be there. And I think if you're writing that, and that might be, pop versus, I don't want to say art, because that I don't know if my work qualifies as that, but if you're creating art, if you're actually expressing something that you think is important to you, I think you are going to run the risk of ruffling feathers of part of your reader base. And yeah, I know, and I think we live in an age where there's a lot of fan bases and reader bases that are rabid nowadays, and sometimes I'm like, oh crap.
Yeah, especially in this space.
Yeah,
I want to just say, I feel like we're all artists, Brad, including yourself. I don't want you to doubt yourself. I feel like it's a spectrum, maybe. Like there's crazy fine art that can't really communicate with people on a regular basis. And there's some people that love that. And that does tend to be me, unless it's color change. And then anything, I'll go to McDonald's and watch the color change. And then you've got like the art of, I'm just entertaining you, like a bard. I think of like, going into the bar. I'm miserable. I need somebody to give me some kind of story to entertain me for a few hours, which I think is just as artistic. So I feel like you're an artist. So don't ever deny that. It's just a spectrum of where are you sitting in art? How palatable is it rather than it is art or not?
Different levels.
Yeah. And then going to answer Joe's question, I wish I paid attention to that, because I probably have like better sales, but I do tend to just kind of be like, I never know what I'm going to write. I do try to, if it's like a request, I am obviously trying to fit it in the theme of whatever I've been asked to do, which the hardest was Sherlock Holmes. Oh my God. Why did I say yes? That was really, really difficult. Just because you love to read Sherlock Holmes doesn't mean you should be writing it. I'm going to say that for myself. But usually it is just kind of like, oh, here's a weird idea, and it'll be finished. Like I already know what's going to happen, or I guess as I'm writing, it's happening. And then at the end of it, it's like, oh, that was the story. And I don't really do a word count unless somebody asks me, can it be 5,000 words, or it's 2,000 or 1,000? But otherwise, it's just, there's zero plans. It's just kind of like, well, this is what I was thinking about. And then this happened, and oh, it's done and cool. And maybe I should have made that more marketable, but it is what it is. So.
Claudia, do you have anything to add to this?
Well, it was when you were talking about that, I'm much more like, I feel like my writing process sometimes is I've got this random collection of shit on my desk and I've made it into a story. And so I'm so focused on trying to figure out how all the pieces fit together that I am not worried about any of that other stuff, because there's some random stuff in there. And for it to make sense, right? It's a lot of work.
Stephanie, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think just like what she's saying, a lot of artists, authors, in order to present something, we have to like either experience it to a degree or simulate the feeling. And it's just like what she was explaining with stuff on her desk. It's anything in our surroundings we can mold. And that's why, like I was saying before, we have the mentality sometimes that anything can be possible. We just are connecting the dots in our mind of how that scenario could actually come to be or come forth.
Nice. Angela, Anita wants to validate you. She said your story was fine.
I know, and I so appreciate that, because that was a story that I just remember. Like that was my story. You can start going, I'm pretty good. Woo, I'm on it. And then Sherlock Holmes came along, and I was like, oh, I have no idea what I'm doing. Oh God, please help me. Like, it was definitely a humbling experience, and also huge respect to all the Sherlock Holmes people. So.
Yeah, I
And
know
also,
some
why
people.
can't blood happen in Sherlock Holmes? Why can't they explode? You know?
I know a lot of people who've had that very struggle, Angela. So
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There was, and I don't want to veer off of the topic, but they were editing it, and I believe it actually was Anita that said something like, "You have this kidnapping of a child, but it never goes anywhere. Like, what happens to it? It's just a loose end." And I said, that's because I needed more word count. And so I'm just starting to kidnap children at this point. I'm just random kidnapping of children. So
You're like those students and we're trying to hit the word count for their assignment.
Oh my God, I'm still like
I'm
1,000 words short.
very,
Kidnap
very,
a child.
very, 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 very sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sherlock Holmes was so sad.
All right. Well,
You know, Joe,
yeah. Go ahead, Brett.
it's interesting because I think um, so listening to all the authors here, we're like, we don't care, we just write whatever we want to write, right? But I think the perception is, I don't know if it's real, I don't it might just be internet algorithms trying to drum up viewership, but like it seems like there are elements of fan bases that are like super purists and like this is what sci-fi is and anything else isn't.
Yeah.
And then they fight with each other. And I don't know if that's to say, maybe that's just a product of maybe that's real and out there. Maybe that's just a product of internet algorithms trying to get views. But it's I don't know, it's like there's this perception that it matters to so many people, and then you get all the authors and we're like, I don't know.
Well, I mean, I've seen it on groups. Like, have you been on? I've been on sci-fi groups where I say, some sort of fantasy element, and they're like, "Oh, that's not real sci-fi."
Yeah, it's
The
a lot of
background
gatekeeping
drama.
going on out there.
Right? Like, I don't need a drama. Back it away.
Yeah, the behind the scenes drama.
Yeah.
It is really funny how that happens. I was at the Lord of the Rings. Remember that Lord of the Rings thing where it was like you could watch it for 12 hours straight and you ate the food there. It was like a big deal. It was when Return of the King came out, and it was like 1,000 places you could go see it. And I did that, and it was really fun, but also terrible food and like definitely a marathon. But I was standing in the line to get the hot dog that you get for your, I don't know, like $90. And the girl in front of me was all dressed, like some people were into it. So they were dressed up in the medieval clothes. And she turned to me and she was griping about somebody else's costume. I didn't have a costume. I sucked. And she said, that's not period what she's wearing, blah, blah, blah. And just very angry. And I wasn't trying to be sarcastic, but I said, what period is it? Like, it's Lord of the Rings. It's not a period. It doesn't exist. This is fantasy, right? I'm confused. Was it history? Did I miss that this was history? And I realized, whoa, I was getting some definite shade, aggressive feelings from her by saying it didn't exist. And then I was like, it exists in our imagination. It's okay.
Yeah.
You're lucky to get shanked.
I know. I watch my mouth now. Like, do not say such sacrilegious things.
We'll get into perceptions here right after we take a little break here. We're gonna jump into the Indie Connection. Every Indie Connection till the end of the year, we are doing the best of kind of versions of, and this one just fit very nicely into it. Even though the fans voted for it to be seen again, this is an Indie Connection that was probably, I want to say, either the fourth or fifth one that Courtney ended up doing. This is almost 6 years old now, but this is the Indie Connection for the Star Wars saga, and for writing in that verse, so to speak. So enjoy that, and then we'll be back to talk a little bit more about how fucking crazy people are about their Star Wars and stuff. All right, here we go.
Hey guys, Seal Kaden here from Fiction Atlas Press, bringing you another Indie Connection. Help me, Indie Connection viewers. You're my only hope. Because this week, we're going to be talking about indie books that you might enjoy if you're a fan of Star Wars. The first book I have for you is called Black Dawn by Kay Gorman. Karen Makos lives a lie. Genetically engineered from birth and raised in a scientific compound to gain unnatural powers, she has since escaped and built another life, hidden from those who created her. For her, the chance to pilot a small-time scrounging vessel to remote corners of space is the dream. After years on the run with her sister, and enduring the constant paranoia of living planetside, going off radar gives her exactly what she wants. Freedom. That dream is shattered. A system-wide attack decimates humanity and leaves the survivors scrapping for clues, and Karen might know where to look. But digging into her past comes with a whole new set of secrets and consequences, none of which she wants to face. Plagued by strange dreams of her sister and a sense of growing danger, Karen and the crew of the Nemia must race desperately across space to find their loved ones and answers. The second book I have for you is called Siren's Journey by Thomas Fay. John Stanton came to the Alpha Centauri system to start a new life. What he finds is Celise, a beautiful telepathic Centaurian, at a place among the crew of the Helios Ark free merchant vessel. When his new life is threatened by a dangerous enemy, John is forced to turn to the Space Navy for help, the very organization he swore he'd never return to. As the situation escalates and the Space Navy puts politics first, John's only chance to save Alpha Centauri may rest with the Centaurian's unique ability. But first, they'll have to survive long enough to use it. The third book I have for you is called The Bearer's Burden by Chad Queen. Cade Elegy's mind is tearing itself apart, crowded with the phantoms of the dead, and he must carry the burdens they could not. This bond lends him their experience and allows him to bend the laws of the physical world, a power he desperately needs if he is to discover the truth of what happened to his missing family. The trail has gone cold, but he is given one last chance when he is recruited by a princess to solve a murder. They soon uncover proof that their war with the race, a hostile alien race dominating their planet, never really ended. Together with the princess, an overzealous archaeologist, and an ancient computer intelligence, Cade must stop the race before they annihilate the last remaining cities of Chalice, and before the phantoms he bears destroy what's left of his mind. And the last book I have for you is called Deliverance by M.R. Forbes. Caleb is a former Marine raider and commander of the Vultures, an elite search and rescue team that spent the last 2 years pulling high-value targets out of alien-ravaged cities and shipping them off-world. Now he's on the last starship out, under orders to join 40,000 survivors on their journey to a new home. It's not the mission he wants, but it's a mission he's doing his best to accomplish. When Caleb meets the colony's head sheriff, she represents an opportunity for a fresh start and a chance to leave his old life behind for good. Only the mission will be harder to complete than either of them realize. And the colonists will need the old Caleb more than he ever imagined. Okay, that's all for me this week. I'll see you next week on the Indie Connection. Bye.
All right, I love when she cosplays and puts that in these things, and that was one of those moments. I love that. It was one of the production value upped a little bit for her at that moment, which was really great. And then, of course, I'm nostalgic for the times when she used to do this from her car, as you saw there. But this is we're very grateful to Miss Courtney Cannon, and I actually I asked CL Cannon. When we were talking about it, when she's doing the new ones, if she could do one from her car next year. So we'll see if that happens. But just to give it a little nostalgia. But new ones are going to be coming out in 2025. We're real excited about that. But for now, we'll just bask in the beauty that was futures past and everything about the Indie Connection that I love. So thank you to CL Cannon. Go check out those books. The links are in our description, as are the links for everybody here to go check out what they're doing. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. Okay, so I'm curious now, since we've kind of danced around it a little bit and touched upon it. okay, so you're going for a certain aspect, no matter what you think of where the story's going at the time you're creating it, whatever art you're creating. If you are aiming toward science fiction or fantasy, you want people, especially towards the beta reading aspect of it, that are probably going to help you determine and decide where exactly this thing is going, right? Obviously, we have beta readers we trust and beta readers that maybe we have for specific things and specific needs. And I'm curious if you have some fandom folks that you implore when you delve deep into where the edges of these stories you're writing go, or are you just relying on your typical process and the beta readers that you normally employ?
That's a good question.
Like,
Normal process.
I was going to put it on of like, oh, we're supposed to have beta readers. That's right.
or arcs or anything of that nature. Any time you're putting it out there to be critiqued, it doesn't have to be beta readers specifically. I just figured beta readers was probably the more common aspect of, because that's when you really want to know what the story is going to tell the audience. But I mean, you could have the audience too, if you have people in the audience telling you this, or arc readers or something to that effect. Have you thought about that aspect of it?
I know that, like, I've been told never get beta readers that are authors, and I was always like, that's odd, right? But then when I actually did get some beta readers that were authors, it's true, because normal readers don't like what's the word? Kind of nitpick. Yes, they nitpick certain things that readers wouldn't even think of, right? So
Are you really going to use an Oxford comma here? Come on.
Exactly. So like just little things that read, and then you start to, like, I don't know, go into this crazy frenzy of like, it's never going to be good enough. I don't know. It makes you go into a kind of a spiral.
Yeah.
But I did have some beta readers. It was and then you mentioned beta readers that are paid for. I really don't believe in that.
Well, no, I mean, they pay you in
okay.
pitches.
Okay, I was like, the only people that you could say are
I didn't mean it like
beta
that.
readers that are paid, or the editors.
No, I didn't mean it like that. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No worries. But yeah, no, I find if you do get beta readers, because not everybody does, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you do, they should not be authors.
Actually, I do beta readers, but it's usually like, did I go too far? That's usually what I'm asking is, did I cross a line here that I should not cross? Because I could, and I have, and I have these wonderful people that do hold me back on that. So,
and I hope there's some people who are encouraging you to cross that line, because if they're all against it, screw them.
Well, it's usually more like you're going to lose your readership on that. And a specific example, I was trying to write a romance. It did turn into a paranormal romance because apparently I just can't do plain kissing. It has to be with like a demon or something. And then in that process, there was a nightmare involved where there was a praying mantis demon that was like eating people and all this other stuff. And so you go from romance to like pretty, I guess, horror. But I was like, it was just a dream. It wasn't real. And they're like, no, but you still gave the readers the experience of it. And I was like, yeah, but it's really good because she was a silver praying mantis. I mean, I really loved how that turned out. So I still have that scene, and I'll use it somewhere else someday. But I, in the end, was like, okay, I see that was crossing a line. And I'm going to have these people are like, oh, this is a friendly story. And I really picture like this, an older woman I used to know, the one who kind of justified romance because I was very biased, and why romance has a place. And so I apologize for all my bias. But she just said like she loves romance because makes her happy and she doesn't have a lot to live for, which I kind of was like, oh, I'm such a jerk to be so judgmental on people who read romance. So they would be like, I'm making a promise as the writer that I'm not going to scare you. And it's going to be somewhat like this. And then I do scare you. And then So that's where I would censor it, and I do, and that's usually what I'm asking my beta readers, which are like my husband and stuff. Did I cross the line? Like, can she be eaten in a romance? Because it's kind of a hot way to go. I'm just saying that's how I would want to go.
Excuse me.
It's tough to top that.
I was thinking, I did have a thought about it, and then my cat came up, and now I can't say anything. Anyway, go ahead. I'll go on to somebody else.
Joe, I don't know if you explicitly said this or if I just got the idea when you were phrasing your question, but yeah, just asking asking your readers, like, so what genre do you think this is?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because it's like eventually at some point, like for me, it's like when you send out the query letter or when you're putting it on Amazon, I got to tick some boxes here. I'm oh man, what did I create? And so it's like,
good use of them, right? Yeah.
Or what audience would you say?
Yeah.
this is
There you
for?
go.
Yes.
What have I
That's a better way
done?
to ask that question, right? That's a better way, right? What
Yeah.
audiences do you think I'm going to touch, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, no, my beta reader is more about making sure that all the things that are in my head made it on the page. Because it doesn't make sense if you don't have enough of it there. So
I like to ask my beta readers who their favorite characters are and least favorite characters and why. And it's very interesting at the end because I don't know, the characters you think are going to be the favorite, or at least your favorite, they're like not even considered on the list. And you're like, what?
Can't wait for this guy to die. You're like, what?
That leads me to the one of the last questions I was going to ask you all, which is, have you had the experience of someone challenging your genre choice or your decision to, work within this space ever? Has a reader challenged that? Has an editor challenged that? Has anybody ever challenged,
yeah.
Yeah.
So I have a series. It's getting rebranded as the Northwood Guardian series, and it's kind of like almost like a cozy fantasy with some set in a detective agency. But there's not really mysteries, and so I went too far down the whole suspense and mystery path on it. It was more about the fantasy, and so the suspense readers and the mystery readers were like, "This is not a suspense," right? Like there was a lot of pushback with that. And really, I should have done more that this was a cozy fantasy, not, the mystery elements to it. And so, yes, there was definite pushback. Yeah.
I haven't experienced that yet, but yeah, just Claudia's story kind of like it's we've all seen those like movie trailers and they go to see the movie and like this was nothing like the trailer. Like as much as we like to ignore, or like it sounds like the people around the table here don't think too much about genre or subgenre, but as much as we like to ignore that, readers do have it. Like when they click on the mystery, they have expectations of what they're going to get, and it's kind of like if you don't give them that, it's it's that fake trailer for the movie. You're like, what the?
Yep.
So I think they're as much as it doesn't vex us when we're writing.
Well, there's a specific aspect of that, Brad, where you are setting a trailer expectation, and that for authors, it's the blurb and the back cover, right?
Yep.
And so are you thinking about that when you're going? If I write an obscure blurb or back cover, are people going to come to me and go, "That wasn't like the trailer"?
That wasn't. Yeah, none of this thing happened in the book. I think I guess in the book world, it's like the front cover. Like you see the front cover, and then you read it. You're like, that was never in the book. Like what the? What does that picture have to do with it?
Oh my god! The amount of times I've said that to myself. Yeah. Why is there a sword? There's no
swords in this.
There's no sword. Right.
Yeah. Who is that character?
Why do we have a dragon on the cover? Where's the dragon? Where the hell's the dragon?
Yes.
Yeah. It happens. It happens a lot. Yeah. I am really surprised by that, actually.
I'm going to say that could be because the author really wanted the praying mantis, so they used that in the cover art. And they'd already paid for it, and then when they were told they really couldn't do that, then they were like, "Well, I get to keep the cover, though." Maybe that's why.
And if you added me that way, if you came back at me and said that, I would be like, "Fair enough, hey." You know, yeah.
You, as a reader, you were not privy to that dream, but it
Right,
happened, and it was brutal and horrific. But yes,
Not
enjoy the rest of the
romance.
story. They love each other. Everything's great.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. Okay, so before you all put me on the spot and I dawn a character and have you ask me 20 questions about that character. I'm curious from each of you, is there a fandom that you're very rabid about, or is there something you're not so sure that people have interpreted correctly that you are a fan of? Especially if it's in the space genre, that would be great. I mean, because that's what we're talking about. But it doesn't have to be. If there's a certain fandom that you're kind of prickly about.
Oh, prickly about? No.
Yeah, yeah.
I have stuff I want to do. Like I would love to do like a Serenity type of thing, right?
Mhm.
Like I have that draw, right? Like wouldn't that be fun? But I've got things that I'm drawn to try, but not necessarily like, I'm
Mhm.
kind of like people interpret things and they do what they're going to do. And I just want to like the story.
Nice.
Yeah.
Is that for everybody? Everybody gonna cop out like that?
Oh, come on.
I'm kidding, Connie. I'm
That's
kidding.
sad.
Yeah. I was going to say, can I talk about Peter Jackson and Lord of the Rings?
Sure, yeah. That's fine.
No, I do. That was one where it's not often, but when it's something that exists already, it was a classic thing. Like Sherlock Holmes was one of those, and some of the Sherlock Holmes came out, and I have been known to go on these tirades and actually hold pretty vicious opinions about some people and the movies they've created that went way. Samwise Gamgee would never betray Frodo. Okay, let me just tell you that,
Right.
Peter Jackson. You were wrong. You didn't read that book right.
Right.
Just why? Just stop at number 2. Do not do the third movie. You just failed horrifically. But if you want to use any of my stories in any of your movies, I'm just kidding. Loved it. It was fantastic.
You just watch the dwarves and go, their movement is 20 and those wargs are like at 40. How are they not catching them? That's not realistic.
Yeah, it's usually I'm pretty laid back. Like I'm not looking for drama in my life, so I don't try to get into these fights. But yeah, and Angela, like there are certain, I find for me, like there are certain things that certain movies, certain pieces of work that are fantastic, that they're created, they're seminal, they're fantastic, and they don't need to be done again. And why are you doing it again? And it's just shadow of what it used to be.
If you're gonna do it again, stick to it, at least the actual story. Don't try to be creative. We don't want your creativity.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, right. And I don't know. It seems like that's happening. That's like that's at least in movies. It seems like that's all there is nowadays. Like, let's go grab a great movie and remake it again, worse than it was before.
They just need to go to the indie authors. That's what they need to do.
Yeah, I know. There's like so many fantastic new stories out there. Like, there's so many fantastic. Like, come on, like
it's fear-based.
Well thought out,
well
isn't it?
Don't get us going. Yeah, don't get us going.
In the past.
Yeah.
Y'all gonna get me to jump on my soapbox. I mean,
yeah, I know. It's like we all got this rant that's like, come on, there's all these new.
What are you doing?
Fear-based. They think that if they use a big name, they're going to draw the audience.
Well,
and
that's
if they pick Claudia Blood, they're going to be like, "Oh,
it's not even that. It's not even that, Claudia. They're lazy, more lazier than you think they are. It's just that it's pre-written. It's all put together. All they have to do is hire a guy to spec it, to kind of just speckle in a little bit of modernism to it, and they look at the ad dollars as part of that aspect, but it's all about just, hey, look, how can we spit something out really fast that's gonna, churn a profit or at least get some interest and not, and just we can make it really cheaply and just get it done. And that's Hollywood is super lazy.
The money. That's how
they're super lazy.
Money and taking audience off.
Yeah, well, that's right. They're joining. They're surely getting a crowd, right? It's just whether it's an angry crowd or a happy crowd.
Exactly.
Right. As long as they spend money, do they care?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, y'all. So I know I have some newcomers here to this experience, but we're about to do the epilogue, and that is I am now have donned a character. Let me get into character. All right. So I am a specific person within. I will tell you. I will give you this right off the bat. is a person within a science fiction realm, and they were part of a film. Okay, it's film. So you
Okay.
don't have to ask me that question whether it was book or film. All right. And so we're going to do 20 questions essentially. And I'm going to have you all start by, I'm just going to go down the line and let each of you ask a question. So Claudia, Brad, then Stephanie, then Angela. And you'll each ask a question. And you get one guess to guess who I am. And once you use that guess, you can't guess anymore. You can utilize the questions to kind of cheat and try to guess who I am, but you're using a question if you do that. So once we've gone through each of you, then it's free for all. Anybody can ask a question that they want. I'll keep track of your questions until you get to 20, and at which point, if you haven't guessed it already, you'll need to guess it. So far, so good. We have
and they're yes/no questions.
Yes, no
Okay,
questions.
just making sure.
Okay.
Yeah. And so far, you all have to live up to a reputation now, because so far, Sean and I have not stumped our audience yet. Everybody's guessed it by the time we get to about
No pressure.
16 or 17. So,
Uh-oh.
all right. So,
Hey,
Claudia,
I have a migraine, right? So I should get you should send me
She
like
gets an extra
helpful
5
plan.
questions.
Yeah. I get
Yeah.
kind
all
of,
right.
yeah.
All right, Claudia. So start us off.
Are you a child in the beginning of the film?
No.
Are you male or female? Oh, no. Okay. Are you male?
No.
Okay.
Ooh.
All right.
Stephanie.
Okay, not male. Are you out for revenge?
Ooh.
Yes, at some point I do.
Are you human?
Yes. All right. Now you can free for all whoever wants to ask a question.
Are you located on Earth?
Technically, yes. I mean, let's put it this way. I'm from Earth and go back there as frequently as I can, which is not very frequent. So I gave you a little extra there. You're welcome.
Do you play things by the book? Are there like guidelines or rules you follow?
To a certain extent, yes. Not always.
Are you after the greater good? Like, are you working for humanity?
Oh, that's a great question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Humanity. Are you for the greater good? Not necessarily humanity, because sometimes that's not so good.
Actually, I would answer that with a no. And there's a specific reason why, and we'll get into that after we're done guessing. But you're at 7 questions.
I was going to say, do you live in the? Are you alive within the next 100 years?
Oh God, you had to do that to me.
Is this near sci-fi or far? Are you alive within the next 100 years?
I gotta look that up. Hang on, I'm not sure. I'm not sure when it began. So ultimately, when it ends, no. But when it began, possibly within the last 100 years, within 100 years of now.
Are you on a spaceship?
Yes.
Are you a pilot? Do you fly a spaceship?
No. I mean, I could fly a spaceship because I'm badass, but that's not my job.
All right.
Do you end up trying to make an escape from something?
Yes. She's got it. Stephanie's got it.
Is it Alien?
No.
Oh, dang it. Oh, that's what I was thinking of because I watched that recently.
It's like, do you love cats?
Yeah, I should have asked that.
Do you have a raccoon as a?
You're close.
Well, I just want to ask this, even though this has nothing to do with it, but I just want to ask it. Do you have a raccoon as a sidekick?
No.
Would you like one?
No.
Is there a way to have this really happen in real life?
Uh, you said it's close to alien.
Yeah.
Oh.
You're not getting the right name. Let's put it that way.
Ripley? Are you Ripley?
I am Ellen Ripley.
There you go. You were right,
You're
Steph.
pink.
Oh, so it was
Ah.
from Alien.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
It's like
I knew
Jeopardy. You have
it.
to phrase it in the form of a question.
The reason why I said she's not for humanity is because in Aliens, she's basically, no, fuck this. Let's nuke them all and get the
Yeah.
fuck out of here.
I
right?
know.
Mhm.
Get out of here.
She's like, I don't care about humanity at this point. I just want these fuckers gone, right? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
I think I would feel similar in her shoes.
Yeah, right. After what she's been through, sure. Yeah. So yes, it was Ellen Ripley. You guys did that really well. Anita,
Of course she did.
Of course you did. Yeah, it's easy to Monday morning quarterback, right? But
I just couldn't
I'm sure.
remember her name. I knew
Yeah,
what
yeah.
movie it was. I just couldn't remember her
yeah,
name.
you had the right. You were on the right track though. You had it. I knew you had it. So, all right, y'all. So let's go around the room and tell everybody where they can find you. Angela, we'll start with you. So
Yeah, absolutely. We've got Space and Time Magazine, which is spaceandtime.net. I have socials, but I really don't get on them anymore because I've started a community with it, which is authortunitieshub.com, and I'm usually there, and it's free to join, and we have a lot of fun, and it's pretty much where I hang out now. And then I sometimes slum it and go over to Facebook and say hi, but usually we're over in the hub.
I have the Substack link in the description for everybody who wants to sign up for opportunities. So it's in there. So you guys can all
Thank
check that
you.
out. All right, Stephanie.
Yeah, so my books are not hard to find. They're on Amazon, Ingram Sparks, Google Play, Kobo, everywhere. They're everywhere chapters. I also have a website, landofthedragon.ca. And I'm also a co-host on a kind of podcast YouTube thing called Positively Literary. So, yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Everybody go check that out. All right, Brad.
Love it. I probably the easiest way to find me would be through the website bradanderson2000.com. I'm the 2000th one, I guess. There you can get the again, you can find my books pretty much everywhere as well. But if you go to the website, you'll get the links to them all through there. So bradanderson2000.com.
And there's no doubt about looking at your covers what your books are about, Brad.
Yay. Oh, yeah, hopefully. Yeah.
No,
Wait till you read it.
They're really fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
They look great. All right, Claudia.
And I'm at claudiablood.com, and I'm also a wide author, so I'm available on all e-vendors and Ingram Sparks as well, etc. So claudiablood.com.
One of my favorite things that happened this year is I got to meet Miss Claudia Blood in person,
Which was amazing.
So yeah, that was pretty awesome. And I'm Joe Compton. This is Going Now. Congratulations, you found us. Thank you so much for doing so. If you this first time here, please do hit that like button, subscribe, comment, do all the wonderful things you do to help us get seen, because it does help us get seen by doing all those wonderful things, and we really appreciate you doing so. We have a lot of great programming coming up this week. It's always full here on Going Now. Tomorrow night, I will be speaking with Ariel. Is it Ariel? No, Lily. I've got Lily Lucchese tomorrow night on 21 Gram at 7 o'clock Eastern, which is going to be an incredible conversation. And then right after that, there is a conversation and a cocktail with the great Vanessa Junta. She's hosting, and she has Kyoko M on there. And if you've never experienced a conversation with Kyoko, you're missing out, because she is one of the most knowledgeable people, one of the funnest people to talk to. And I love doing panels with Kyoko. I got to do one at Multiverse just recently, and it was fantastic. And she's amazing, and it's going to be an incredible conversation. So you'll want to check that out. That'll be at 9 Eastern on Monday. And then we have another Words That Kill. Anita Stewart, who's in our audience, has an episode with Juliette Rose, who is our host. See, I'm connecting all the dots here this week. Who's our host for First Time for Everything, which is the show we do on Thursday nights, and she will be live on Thursday night with her show, and all those wonderful things. We've got a lot of great stuff happening here at Going Now. We want to thank you all for joining us, and remember that it is always time to Go Indie Now. We'll see you again soon, everybody. Bye.